Welcome again to Friday Night Live. This month we're talking about managing, coping, and overcoming grief. When we look at our country, we have lost over 500,000 persons as a result of the COVID pandemic. And we want to have a conversation with two women of God who have experienced loss, talking about how they have coped and are coping and overcoming the loss of a loved one. Tonight, my two guests, Elder Mobley, who is a pastor at the Greater Mount Sinai Church in Newark. And also we have Ms. Coleman. Thank you for joining us. She's a professional social worker at one of our public schools. I am so delighted to have you join me tonight as we have a conversation about grief. It's a difficult subject, but it's one that we must deal with as we are on the journey of life. And so we want to talk about how do we cope with, manage, and overcome grief. And I think, you two are so the right people to talk to about this, because you have lost mothers as a result of COVID. And as you know, this month is Mother's Day month, and I thought it was fitting for us to have this conversation to help you, to help me, and to help those who are out there struggling with managing and overcoming the challenges that we face. So many people have lost so much. People have lost jobs. People have lost relationships. People have lost businesses as a result of COVID. And but this really hits way deeper than that, the loss of a loved one. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Coleman. Thank you so much for making the sacrifice to come and have this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And just tell us about the journey of, she was like a mother to you, your grandma.
Yes.
And just that journey of having a grandma who is there for you, emotionally connected with you. She's healthy. She is there, and just suddenly she has contracted this virus. Talk to us about that journey.
So my grandma, at the time, well, she's been living in a nursing home for the past 2 years. She, I guess around March sometime, is when they completely shut down the nursing home, where they stopped taking no more visitors. And for the first month or so, she was doing fine. I would drop off food to her. She would call me on the phone. I would go to the window and visit, say hi. She would come to the window. We would talk, engage through the window. There was her aide there who would keep me abreast of what's going on. So around April sometime, I believe it was like the beginning of April, the governor issued a notice to all nursing homes to take in COVID patients who were on the recovering end into the nursing homes. The issue was that they didn't have any PPE equipment. They weren't prepared to take that many patients at the time. They didn't have enough isolation rooms. So you had COVID patients mixed with the nursing home patients, like long-term care patients, like my grandma. So once that happened, I kind of got a little nervous because my grandmother has pre-existing conditions. She had COPD and other respiratory issues, and it was known that that's what the COVID had targeted. So my grandmother has a very picky appetite. She was a cook. That's what she did for a living. So when she stopped asking me for food, I knew something was wrong. So I had called the doctor. to tell them that my grandmother wasn't feeling well. I hadn't been hearing from her. She hadn't been answering my calls. She hasn't been wanting food. I've been dropping food off. They said the food was just there. So they tested her for COVID, and she tested positive. And so it probably was the hardest 8 days up until her passing of my entire life.
So when you discovered, when they told you your grandma has contracted COVID, what was going on in your mind and emotionally? Because you can't connect with her physically, and this news comes to you. Where were you at emotionally?
Honestly, I was I just wanted to protect her. Like, I wanted to be there for her. I was scared. I felt helpless, nervous, angry, frustrated, because it wasn't just an easy 8 days. You know, through the process, I even had to call the cops on the facility, the local police station on the facility.
So you're angry because they are not doing right by your grandma.
Right. Angry because they weren't prepared. Angry because I couldn't get in there. You know, because I had already, you know, it's not a secret that nursing homes are not the most, you know, before the pandemic, that they're some of them are not the cleanest. Some of them, the people that work there, are not always the nicest. You know, they don't always give the 100% care. You know, but so that's, you know, that was more of my anger had came in was, you know, I even told them, I said, you know, suit me up, let me in. You know, I'll take care of her. You know, don't worry. I don't, you know, put something on me. And of course they said no. So then I started feeling helpless because I couldn't do anything.
Let's talk about that journey. And you can join in as well, Elder Mobley. The whole process, and that's the thing that we really want to process through and work through, the varied emotions that we face when we go through grief, and especially the grief that comes from the pandemic, losing a loved one. So you are feeling that great sense of love, compassion, but it phases and morphs and becomes anger and despair, because you're going through and you're realizing that you can't help. And if you can help, they're not allowing you to help. And so it's not just you that are you're feeling helpless. Those who are caring for your grandma is feeling helpless too, because we've never been this way before.
Right.
Yeah. How about your emotions? What were your emotions?
Well, actually, the same as Nijmima, Ms. Coleman just spoke. I was angry, kind of anxious a lot, not knowing when I would receive certain calls or what would the next call be. As we were getting reports, sometimes when there were shift changes with the nurses, one shift didn't know what the other shift were reporting, and that became frustrating, and I felt like they should have known, but as you said, they were going through something else too on their end. So I was trying to be considerate, but at the same time, I knew that my mother deserved a certain type of care, and she deserved my support. And that was very frustrating the entire time.
That piece, let's just talk about that a little bit with the deserving, because we all feel, and which we rightly should feel, that our parents, moms, dads should get the best of care. And in the pandemic, you know, and that word it was pandemonium, you know. They're not getting what they deserve. How do we work through that? You know that they're not getting what they deserve. They're not getting that special care. How did you feel knowing that you could be there and you knew exactly what Nana wanted? You knew exactly what would make her feel comfortable, but you're not able to give her that.
I think the only word that I can probably now is I literally felt helpless.
Wow.
Like I literally just, it was a day or two that I cried from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, because I just felt so helpless. And like Elder Mobley said, my grandmother was, and not to say that no one else, mother or grandmother shouldn't, but she did not deserve that. You know, I always tell people, you know, when you seen her, you can tell that she was very well taken care of. You know, she died at 85. She didn't have one gray hair or wrinkle. Her skin was flawless, and it was because I took good care of her. So that's, you know, when I say that I felt helpless and in those days leading up to it, it was sad, and you know, I wouldn't wish that on my on anyone.
Yeah.
I agree. I would say like the help. I think that's the best word to use, helpless. But then also I think there was a moment when I felt that I failed my mother because I could not be there and I couldn't give her what she deserved. So because in talking to her, we had some opportunities to talk to her FaceTime, and just seeing her face, the look on her face and her expressions, and just knowing, I knew what she felt, because you know we're connected, so you know what she's going through. You knew she didn't want to be in that situation. And then plus there were moments when my mother was at least able to say, she kept telling my siblings who live in the same state that she did in South Carolina, I'm here in New Jersey, and she was able to tell my siblings, you know, call Michelle, tell Michelle to come. And so at that time, you know, we were limited in being able to see her. Yes, so, and she was able to verbalize some of the things that she didn't agree with in the hospitals, the things about the doctors and the reports and different things. And although we tried to advocate in a lot of instances, it seemed like things wasn't moving as quick as it should or efficient as it should have. And again, because we didn't see her getting what she needed as she deserved, again, I think maybe that's where I just felt maybe I failed her in some respect.
Yeah. The funny thing is, my dad passed in February last year, and so he did not succumb to COVID. It was as a result of other illnesses. And so the difference in my grief to your grief is that I was able to go visit my dad, and I knew where he was physically, even if I kept believing and trusting that he would turn around. I was able to touch him, love on him, sing for him, sit there not saying anything, but him knowing that I'm there. And so that creates a different level of grief. It's a satisfaction that I get. And so when he passed in late February, I had a good sense of closure. And so I'm hearing from you that you didn't have that. You were advocates, and you were frustrated advocates because the system. And so they're trying to safeguard you from getting COVID, and they're trying to safeguard your grandma, your mom. But you wanted to come touch each other.
Right.
And so that creates a whole another level of frustration. And so that journey, the 8-day journey, you said it took 8 days. That was really quick.
Right. And it was more quicker for her because she had respiratory issues. So prior to this incident, the COVID, the doctor had told me that she only, her lungs was only functioning at 30% capacity, and they wanted to put her on hospice. But you know, my grandmother is a very wise woman, very smart, and we are believers. And I just told the doctor, when God say they're ready for her, then she'll go. So I'm not going to tell her that she's going to go on hospice, because God has the final say, you know. So she went fast because her lungs couldn't handle, you know. I mean, this is just my only belief, is that when you don't get cared for the way you supposed to, you know,
Deteriorate faster.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think that's why it went so fast, that she passed away so fast. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that the emotional, the contact, the touch, the rubbing of the hand, and someone mentioned to me their relative was feeling cold in the hospital. You know, if you could have gone in and covered mom and love on her, love heals. Love is a healing agent.
Right.
You know, and so I think during the pandemic, the distancing of people from their loved ones, I think that was the worst of the worst. How did you feel being in New Jersey? The distance, how did you cope with that?
It was very, very difficult because I had to make decisions because during the process, they were saying what type of care that she would need if she made it out. She would need long-term care. So I was trying to plan that once she got out, my time, so I can spend the majority of the time caring for her at home. They said that she would need, her body deteriorated in such a quick, rapid, and aggressive way. Things that she was able to do, like feeding herself, walking. Even though she walked with a cane, she was able to walk, she was able to drive, she was able to communicate, process things. You know, she had her mental capacities were good, but once she got COVID, all of those things diminished, it's like decreased. And so she was total dependent. So at the time of me being in Jersey, I was trying to watch my time and seeing what is it that I need to do. And I also was trying to concentrate and be prayerful because, again, we could not go into the hospitals. We only, in South Carolina at that time, they allowed 2 visitors, the same visitors. So my younger sister and my mother's baby sister, my aunt, they went on a regular, and it had to be the same 2 people. So I basically did the phone calls, talked to the nurses each shift, the morning and the evening shift. The way that I coped definitely was through prayer. Our church at Greater Mount Sinai, at that time we had, my pastor was in the hospital with COVID. Her daughter, she had 2 daughters in the hospital with COVID. Wow. And then right prior to my mother passing, her daughter passed. So there was the body of Christ, different churches, ministries came in and they supported us in prayer. We had evening prayer every day. There were bishops and ministers from other ministries calling and checking on me, and because my pastor was in the hospital sick herself. So the body of Christ came together strong. My family, we maintained communication with one another, and that was very helpful. But it was my faith. Like you said, it was nobody but God that helped us through. The prayer of the righteous truly avails much, and it helped in those times.
Yeah. Wow. This is levels of pain. Levels, not just pain, but levels of pain, because you feel trapped, you feel helpless, because you can't go and do what you know mom, grandma wanted to do, what they like to do. And so with all those barriers preventing you from going in and giving the care that you really think your loved one needs, those barriers are there. How did you go to work, do your other responsibilities? How did you take care of your other responsibilities with all that mental, psychological, and emotional pressure?
Well, I work in education, so I was working from home. We had been home for a month, and that had its own challenges. But I was working from home. But I don't have any children. My responsibility was my grandmother. You know, so I just prayed. I think probably on Sunday that she passed away on a Tuesday. Sunday, I stayed outside the nursing home from probably 8 in the morning to about 6 at night in my car, and I had friends come by just to kind of, you know, encourage me. But I would talk. At that time she was deteriorating, so she really couldn't talk. She was trying to, you know, but she really couldn't talk. And but they would tell. I can hear them telling, you know, Miss Myrna, your granddaughter's outside. You know, she's here. She's outside. So when I got home that Sunday, I got on my hands and knees and I told God, if it's your will, it's your way, and don't let us suffer no more, and be in no more pain. So I I have a younger brother, and I called him and I told him, I said, you know, you need to call Nana, just to, you know, hear her voice. And so he did, and he said that she did say something, talk to him. And I said to myself, I'm not going to go back to the nursing home no more. And that Tuesday she passed early in the morning. They called me, and I said to, because that Sunday I said, once I gave it to God, I said, I can't go back up there no more, sitting out there. It's not doing me no good, or her. And so that Tuesday morning at like 7 in the morning, and that's, so all Monday I didn't sleep or nothing. Because I was just waiting for them to call me, you know. And then at Tuesday, I got a missed call from them, and I said, "Oh, Nana, you left me." I didn't know it, but I just knew it when I seen the call at 7. I said, "Oh, Nana, you left me." And so I called back, and they said, "Nijmima, your grandmother, she left this morning at about 6:45 this morning." So that was Tuesday, April 14th, that she passed. She lasted for 8 days, but I got through it with prayer and a good support system. I have, God has given me wonderful friends and family, and they just was calling because we couldn't connect with no one. You know, I didn't see, because it was at the height of the pandemic, so no one knew what was going on. Yeah. So it wasn't like I can go to someone's house or, you know, so all of this was just taking place over the phone. And, you know, they would call. So it was just my support system, you know, people just checking, and my faith, I'm going to tell you, because I live alone, and I'm, you know, I've lost my mother when I was 13, my great-grandmother when I was in my 20s. So all of my maternal figures are no longer here. But I believe the loss early on of my mom had prepared me for this, because I have already experienced the loss of a maternal person. And also I had found a little peace in it, is that I had given my grandmother all I had. You know, there was no, she left here knowing that I took good care of her, and she was proud to tell everybody that my granddaughter take good care of me. And she was proud to tell her that, you know, I have a master's degree. I'm a licensed social worker. So she left here proud of me. So I found comfort in that.
Yes. Wow. So the journey, the shock that, wow, mom, grandma has been diagnosed. And then the anxiety, the emotional trauma, the helplessness, the anger. So it goes through the phases. And then the passing. It's almost like that's the sentence. You're there now, and you are trying to make arrangements, funeral arrangements. You can't connect really physically with family as you want to. How did you cope with that? How did you navigate all that? True. And you are in New Jersey. How did you navigate that?
Well, right before she passed, like I said, I've been communicating with. She went to the hospital. She was at the hospital for 3 weeks. Then she went to the nursing home. So I had been in communication with them, and what we were doing is preparing for her to come home to live. She was expected to have been discharged like around December 20th from the rehab, and but while she was in rehab, again she got sicker and had to go back to the hospital the Friday before. And so she went to the hospital on the 18th, December 18th. Supposed to have been coming home to stay, that we can take care of her. She was in a position that she needed total care. So we were fixing up her room and everything. So on Sunday, they called us and they stated that they had to put her back on the ventilator again. And that was like the beginning of, like, I know this is not happening, because my mom had been on the ventilator for 10 days already. Then she went into the rehab, and I knew what the first segment of everything, how it hurt her body. And now they're saying she had to go back through it again. And so I went to the hospital on that Sunday prior to her passing, and I say, please don't put my mom back on the ventilator again, because I know she's not going to make it. And they said, if we don't put your mom on the ventilator, and if she needs to be resuscitated, we won't be able to resuscitate it. We won't be able to do it, because I guess it was like I would be going against doctor's orders. And I said, her body can't take that again. And so what I did, so they said they had to do it. So by the time I went upstairs, this was on the phone, by the time I got upstairs to her, they were dealing with her body. You know, preparing her and putting the tube back in her again. And they didn't mean for me to see it. But, you know, I know they were just doing what they do medically. But just watching them doing certain things, like putting a tube down the throat and different things like that, it was really, really bad. And I'm like, my mom still is going through this. But later, after they did that, I was able to go in the room, and I said, Mama, you're going to come home. You're going to be all right. We fixing your room up for you, and everything. So you were giving her hope. I was trying to give her hope, and I trying to give myself hope, too, because of what I was seeing. And I kept my voice calm. I said, Mama, it's going to be all right. I'm here now, because she had been asking for me, like from the beginning, where's Shell, because I've been, I want to say not the only caretaker, because my brother and my sister took care of her as well, and family members, you know, checked in on her, but she and I had always had that relationship like you and your grandmother. And so when we got home that evening, maybe around dinner time, that's when the doctors start calling every so many hours, telling me how she was, and each time her health was getting worse and worse. And then the calls started coming, and they were saying that, well, we need to prepare you. And then it got to a final call where they said, we need your permission not to resuscitate her again. And that was just, I'm like, really? They telling me to tell you not to save my mom? And so I got the strength to go and say that, as you did. And I went and I prayed and I said, Lord, I know I told them not to resuscitate her, but if it's your will, you will spare her life. And I said, God, I trust you. I trust you. And I was just like, Mom, if it's time for you to go, you know, if I have to release, because I didn't know nothing about this, you know, doing this, you know, you don't know what to do a lot of times.
Course, right.
And so I'm like, am I supposed to,
really.
I heard other people say, so I said, maybe I'm supposed to release her.
Yeah.
And I just like, Mom, I don't want to release you. I don't want to let you go. But if this is the will of God. And so they told me that the next time that they would call me, it would be to tell me that she passed away.
Oh, wow.
And when they did, it was like 4:30 or something in the morning on December 21st that they called. But it wasn't like I could sleep. My sister, my brother, they were like, don't tell me nothing till in the morning. You know, because we've been hearing so much bad news along the way, and it's like, just don't tell me, I can't take it again. So what was difficult is that I was not only trying to cope with it myself, but be like strength for
everyone else,
everybody else, and that was very difficult.
And so that's an emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
Right? A up and a down and a
Yes.
and then you are like the support system for other people. This is layers and layers of grief and emotional pain. And so we're hoping tonight that we would be able to encourage someone out there to let you know that the pandemic has caused lots of grief, but there is hope. And so we'll be taking a commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk about how we can overcome and move on beyond the hurt, the pain, the emotional strain, and the psychological and mental agony. We want to encourage you tonight. There is hope. We'll be right back.
Join us this Wednesday, June 2nd, right here at New Covenant for our COVID vaccine clinic. This is in collaboration with Hackensack Meridian JFK University Medical Center. We will be administering the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You must be 18 years and older. To register, call 908-226-0223. Walk-ins are also accepted.
Welcome to Divine Dress Code, your one-stop shop for all your printing needs. We specialize in custom printing on t-shirts, masks, and also ethnic or African print masks and the matching head wraps. We also make prayer pillows with custom printing on it. To learn more about our business, give us a call at 732-485-0977. We look forward to doing business with you. God bless.
The Mentorship Institute is an educational environment intentionally tailored for you to develop, activate, and perfect your dormant giftings. You were created to be and do so much more. Allow us to help you to activate those God-given potentials that lie deep inside of you. You know you were created for greatness, but for far too long you have allowed fear, procrastination, and other enemies of your purpose to hold you hostage. Allow us to come alongside you to expand and increase your potential. Call us today at 908-226-0223, extension 103, and register today for Glean Mentorship Institute. Allow yourself the opportunity to grow and be all that God has called you to be. Register today. You are worth the investment. Welcome back to our second half of Friday Night Live. We're dealing with a difficult subject of grief and how do we cope with it? How do we overcome grief? And I'm so delighted, my two guests. It has been an emotional first half with Elder Mobley and Ms. Coleman. And so the journey has been an emotional one, and I do empathize with you, having lost my both parents, but the level of grief that you experienced is at a greater concentration because of the pandemic. And so we are at that point where you realize this is it. Mom is gone, Nana is gone. How do you navigate the burial? How do you navigate that in a pandemic?
Right. Well, that part brought on its own challenges. After my grandmother passed in April, Saturday we had a viewing where we can only invite 10 people, 10 people with the pastor included. So it caused some challenges where some people weren't able to come to see. So it was only 10 minutes we were allowed to view her body. We had the pastor say a few words, and then that was it. And because of so many deaths that was occurring at that time, the cemetery couldn't give us a time frame to bury her actually in her plot until a month later.
Oh,
so
wow.
she passed away April 14th, and my appointment time was May 12th for her to be buried. So
So you actually were given an appointment for burial?
yes, we had an
Wow.
appointment that we had to keep. And then the day of, only one person was allowed in the cemetery because of the COVID. I laugh and tell people that, my grandmother raised me and my brother, and I wouldn't allow for him not to see his grandmother go down. So we hid him in the back of my car and drove into the cemetery with him hiding in the back. So as we got closer, he hopped out, and the funeral home director was like, he can't be here. I said, well, we couldn't let him not see his grandmother. And so they said that he worked for the funeral home, and that's how we let it go. But it was just him and I there, and we saw her, as they lowered her into the ground. But it was just, it was difficult, and not having, my grandmother was a very popular woman. She would have had a church full of people coming to celebrate her life, and to narrow it down to 10 family members in 10 minutes, it was hard. And then waiting a whole month later, so never really had like full closure of it, So it was her passing, and then added on to it the whole pandemic, just added a whole nother layer of anxieties and sadness and just frustration, confusion.
Oh, yes.
Confusion, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did you deal and navigate with the business of burial?
For my mother was a pastor, and so it was difficult because normally, you're looking at inviting not only having the family, but also having other clergy and co-laborers in the gospel, there to support, to be there for you. So we were only allowed to have like 50 people to come and convene in the place. We had to end up burying my mother, having the services at the funeral home, which she had a church. That was difficult that we could not have the services there.
Because most churches were closed at that time.
Yes, and then couldn't facilitate the services. Everything was on a time frame. So you're not feeling like you're giving, again, I think the area I felt maybe that failure, but then I knew it wasn't me, but because of the pandemic, that we couldn't give them the proper homegoing or celebration of life as we would have wanted to, and then actually not even be able to see all the guests because there was a viewing the day before, and then we had the services. And so with the viewing the day before, we weren't able to see all the people that came by to view her body or to see her or whatever. So we didn't we wasn't able to benefit from the support that we normally would had it not been the pandemic.
Wow. And that's a very important piece, the support, because we are relational beings. We thrive in relationship. We need relationship to grow and to survive. And that piece of not having the opportunity to connect with those who loved her and those who you love, that created a whole issue where the pandemic is concerned, because it's not your pain, just the pain of a passing loved one. It's the issue with the pandemic, you know? So you have to deal with that, the pressures of the pandemic. And so that creates a whole mental health issue, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and so from your perspective, as your professional standpoint, as a social worker, what can you tell us? Can you tell someone out there who is still grieving, who might have someone still in the hospital battling for their lives, or might have had COVID and still battling to recover? Because as we know, the effects, the after effects are lasting. So from your standpoint as a social worker, how can we deal with the myriads of emotional things that come as a result of?
I feel you need to take one day at a time. Be kind to yourself. Don't feel pressured to get back to work if you had COVID and you're overcoming it, or if you lost a loved one and you're still grieving. Don't feel pressured to get back to normal life.
Take time to grieve.
Take time to grieve, and be kind to yourself. As a social worker, I have a little bit knowledge of terms of educational aspect, but also within my faith is that I found peace in my grandmother's passing and knowing that God doesn't make any mistakes. And so I once had someone question me, how do you not know God doesn't make any mistakes? And I said, well, I can't really tell. You have to have your own walk with God in that. But as a social worker, as a professional, I would tell anyone to be kind to yourself, to try to eat well, drink plenty of water, try to get as much sleep as possible. Journaling helps. Having a good connectivity of friends and people that you can trust and has your back. Also try to get as much rest as you can. If it gets too much to bear, therapy is always good. And not take things so literally. Like I said, just try to take one day at a time and be kind to yourself. What helped me, and I had shared this with Michelle, is that I would go for, my grandmother passed away in April. The funeral services didn't happen till May, so it started to get a little warm out. I was in the height of the pandemic. I would walk. I literally walked away my grief. I literally walked away. So there's 5 stages of grief. There's anger. There's first is denial. There's anger. Then there's bargaining, where you want to get a little bit more time. Then it's the depression stage, and then it's acceptance. So in terms of my grandmother, I skipped over the first 3 phases. I wasn't in denial because I knew she would pass. I wasn't too much angry because I believe my faith in God knows that He does not make no mistakes. So I was not angry at that aspect, that her passing, was angry at how they dealt with her, but not angry at her passing. I don't know if that makes any sense. The bargaining stage, God gave me her 85 years. A lot of us have not lived to 85.
Right. Yes.
So I didn't want to bargain no more time with her because our 85 years were good. But I did go into the depression stage because I for 35 years, that's all I did was take care of people. So once I didn't have her to take care of no more, I started to feel
Depressed. So how do you deal with depression and relating to as a woman with self-care? Because like you said earlier, take care of yourself, be good to yourself. How do we deal with depression? How did you, I'm sure you went through that stage of grief. How did you balance your self-care and depression?
For me, with self-care, I think pretty much what Ms. Coleman was saying is that I kind of had to allow myself to feel what I was feeling, and I had to be true to that. That was part of self-care, just being realistic, self-aware of what I was feeling and what I was experiencing. And just kind of just focusing, prayer was a big part for me. Like I say, we were consistently praying. My faith was the big part for me. It was it, you know, you hear people say, you know, it's this for me, you know, on Facebook, but it was prayer for me. It was the word of God for me. And that's where I kind of just found myself in that daily. I can understand what Ms. Coleman was saying. Me and my mother had a wonderful relationship. I also was able to cope because I did everything that I know that I can do, not just during the pandemic, but I did pre-pandemic. Right. And so I felt in a good place. I didn't feel in that respect that I owed anything. I think I was empty out of whatever I needed to give to her. I did just felt for that moment when she was ill, and I couldn't get to her to touch her. Or to let her hear my voice other than over the phone. At that point, I didn't feel that I could give, but I had given everything so I could rest and be comfortable in that.
That's a good place to be. And this is key because it's a message to all of us who are still alive that we need to value relationships and really give our relationships 100%. So that when that time comes, God forbid, that we are empty, that we feel that peace in knowing that we have given, we have loved, and we have given in that relationship all of ourselves. So with depression, that's a whole nother topic and issue. Because some people, they don't know how to transition out of the depression, you know.
So I walked off my hurt, and I walked it off. I put my headphones on, and I was listening to the minister, the sermons, and I would post some of them. If it resonated with me, I would post it online because it might touch someone else, and then I would post if I woke up in the morning with something on my heart, I would post it online, and the feedback was uplifting for me. But I literally walked off every day. I walked it off because I felt myself, because it wasn't just, like you said, it wasn't just the passing of my grandmother, it was also the pandemic and being alone, you know, for weeks and weeks at a time and not having that connection. So I felt myself going into a dark place. And so I you know, something
snap out of it.
And so what helped me was that I started walking and just communicating and sharing it. I sometimes someone once said, you give too much. Why you tell too? See, I'll come from a place where I feel like my story can heal someone else. So I share it, not sharing it to tell my business, but sharing it with the hope that it might help someone.
Yes, and you're helping someone. And you're being helped as you share.
Yes.
Because it's healing. Right. As you share, you heal.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I'm in acceptance phase of it. It's been a year. I just, you know, we just came through Mother's Day. And so it was really my first Mother's Day, you know, just, you know, not having none of my maternal figures here. And I really I spent it by myself. And I reflecting, I have an ancestry wall in my apartment where I keep all my ancestors who have transitioned. I prayed over there. You know, and like Miss Mobley, Elder Mobley said, me and my grandmother are connected in a way so deep and strong and spiritually that her passing only elevated that, and that I know that I'm never alone. You know, not only God is with me, but my grandma is always with me, and so I found peace in that. So I'm in the acceptance phase of, you know, I've took care of her for 10 years, you know, and now it's like, you know, it's time for me to, you know, to get back to myself and, you know, continue to take care of myself. But it's been a journey, you know, it's been a journey.
Wow. How did you spend Mother's Day, Elder Mobley?
For me, I went back south just for the weekend. And actually, I did not want to be necessarily in the home, not because of not wanting to remember, not out of fear that remembering would cause me to be sad, but I just want to live, continue to live.
Yeah.
And I think
that's what she wanted you to do.
I wanted to continue to live, and I wanted to continue to smile and yet remember and appreciate. And I just had moments throughout that weekend that I just say, you know, just walking around or whatever, like, God, I thank you for my mama. I thank you for the 75 years, you know, just wanted to give God praise for it. And I spent it with my siblings and my nephews and just doing something different. And I really, again, I think Mother's Day was also about me showing my youngest sibling that, yes, we can move on, we can go on. And sometimes I think when we're in positions of leadership or professionals, we have to be the examples sometimes. And showing people how to navigate and how to move forward.
This is good stuff. And this is healing for somebody. And I hope it's more than one person that is really drawing strength from this conversation. So if Mom could hear you now, if Nana could hear you now, what would you say to her?
I would tell her thank you. Yeah, I would just tell her, thank you for her sacrifice. I would tell her thank her for just being who she was and just never giving up on us. And she set the foundation for me. I wouldn't be the woman I am today if it wasn't for her love, her dedication, and her compassion to me. And my grandmother was a person who she took in everybody. She didn't have no, you know, you can be anybody. She would feed you, she would take care of you. And so what I've gathered from her is grace, you know, and I will thank her for that. She gave grace to everyone. It didn't matter what you did to her, she provided grace. So I would tell her thank you.
Elder Mobley, tell us, what would you say to Mom if she could hear you today?
Wow, what I could say to my mom is, job well done. You are my everything, always have been, and that I miss my best friend. I miss those morning prayer times, those evening prayer times, and enjoy Jesus, enjoy heaven, because you deserve it. And I do want to say also, I want to thank Nijmima, even for you being open on Facebook and sharing and being transparent, because in 2 Corinthians, the 1st chapter, the 4th verse, it talks about the consolation that God gives to us, and that we are able, with that consolation, we are able to console someone else. Wow. So as God was healing you, and as He was just blessing you to share and give praise and give glory and different things, you were actually consoling someone else. You was actually preparing someone else for their journey. And I would say, though our Nana passed at the beginning of the pandemic, and my mother toward the end, little did I know what God had given you and console you with. He was preparing me to console me. So I want to say I'm grateful to you.
Wow. What a journey. What a journey.
I say, tell people all the time, there's joy in the midst of our pain, and that even though we've lost our moms, we still got lots of life to live. Yeah, and keeping our faith together, staying connected. I tell all the time, we're gonna be okay.
Yes, we
Yes,
are.
yes,
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 we are.
yes, you will.
Yes.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. And you know, I hear you saying, you would say to them, job well done, job well done. And if I have the authority to respond to that, I'm sure they'll say, live your best life and make me proud. And so, Ms. Coleman, as a social worker, as you go about your business doing, bringing healing to people, live your best life. I believe the best is yet to come for you. And powerful thing, Elder Mobley, you are such a woman of faith. Your best days are ahead of you. And I believe that there's a great cloud of witnesses looking down and saying, run on, girl. Run on, girl. You can make it through this. And there's healing for your soul. There is hope for tomorrow because our Redeemer lives. And the powerful thing of this whole experience, the pandemic, the loss, the hurt, the pain, is that we know someone, Jesus Christ, who has been there. He has been through torture, pain. He has felt all the pains and the emotions that we feel as human beings. He died and he rose again. And he is interceding for you. So tonight, if you are hurting, whether it's from the pandemic, whether it's from a loss, whether it's relationship or whatever you're going through, know that there is someone that loves you unconditionally and is concerned about you. Don't take your life. Don't sorrow beyond sorrow. Get out of that place, that low place, that sad place, and know that there's hope. If you need prayer, if you need someone to encourage you, you can call 908-226-0223. We are here for you. We love you, and God loves you more than anyone else can. God bless you, and we trust that you will find a place of healing, hope, and restoration, because your best days are ahead of you. Have a great evening.
What do you do when you've done all you can and it seems like it's never enough? And what do you say when your friends turn away and you're all alone? Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all and it seems like you can't make it through? Well, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand, watch the Lord see you through. After you've done all you can, you just stand. Oh, tell me, how do you handle the guilt of your past? Tell me, how do you deal with the shame? And how do you smile when your heart has been broken, filled with pain? Tell me, what do you give when you've given your all and it seems like you can't make it through? Child, you just stand when there's nothing left to do. You just stand and watch the Lord see you through. After you've done all you can, you just stand and be sure. Be not entangled in that bondage again. You just stand and endure. Said God has a purpose, yeah, and God has a plan. Tell me, what do you do when you've done all you can, and it seems like you can't make it through? Child, you just stand, you just stay. Oh, all you gotta do is stand. Hey, don't you dare give up. Hey, don't you dare give in, 'cause God is on your side and He won't let you down. Stand through the storm, stand through the rain, stand through all the hurt, and stand through the pain. Don't you give up, and don't you give in, yeah. God is gonna bring you out, yes He will. After you've gone through the hurt and the pain, oh, after you've done all you can, hey, you prayed and you cried, you prayed and you cried, yo, you prayed and you cried, oh, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. He's gonna bring you out, yes He will. He's gonna bring you out all right. Oh, after you've done all you can. Oh, after you've done all you can. Oh, after you've done all you can. Oh, you just stand, because greater is He that is in you than he that's in the world. So all you gotta do is stand.